Hello again and welcome back to the Chelsea Chronicle, the show that doesn't panic even when the transfer window very clearly does. Remember to subscribe, like and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single episode. I'm Jack Drury alongside the man who believes we've nailed our business this summer, James Shearman. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad at all. Today we're going to be grading the Chelsea transfer window, looking at every signing made this summer, and then we'll touch on the VAR chaos that came from the West London derby on Saturday. The window slammed shut on Monday. If you were to give, just off the top of your head, a grade for the transfer window for Chelsea, what would you be looking at?
I'd give Chelsea's transfer window a B grade. And the reason being, I think the outgoings deserve an A, maybe an A star. Maresca cleared a lot of the dead wood, and I think we got higher fees than we might have expected for a lot of players like João Felix and Christopher Nkunku. But the incomings was slightly underwhelming. I still think we've signed a lot of good players. João Pedro's obviously hit the ground running. Delap's unfortunately got injured. Estevão, if you want to count that as this summer, I know we agreed the deal last year. But yeah, I think Chelsea fans probably expected one or two more incomings.
I think I'd agree with you. I'm just looking at the list of outgoings now. You've got Madueke, Kepa, Nkunku, João Felix, Vega, Petrovic, Dewsbury Hall, Chukwuemeka, Broya. The list goes on. You've got big money for Nicholas Jackson, obviously coming in next summer, we think. That, for all the people that have been slamming Todd Bowley's 7-year contracts, you know we'll be able to sell and they'll just sit on their money for years. It's evidence that their plan is working, isn't it?
It really is. And I think you can criticise a lot of Chelsea's signings in recent years, but I think we've probably proven to be the best club in the world when it comes to selling players time and time again, whether it's youngsters who've come through the academy or players, entering the twilight years of their career. We always seem to get a good fee for them. A lot better than other clubs, like Arsenal, whose record sales only something like 35 million. Chelsea seem to top that every few weeks in the transfer window. So, yeah, you've got to give them credit for the sales, but obviously a few more incomings would have been nice too.
Yeah, let's look at those incomings then. We're going to sort of touch on four of what I would say is the main signings of the summer. We'll start with João Pedro, the one who's arguably had the best start since joining. He's done it in a couple of positions now. He's scored in 2 of the first Prem games after starring in pre-season, Club World Cup, everything like that. He looks the real deal, doesn't he?
He really does, and I think you'd have to give that an A star for João Pedro. I don't think you could have expected any more than that. He obviously shown signs of becoming a brilliant player at Brighton and maybe Watford before that. But I don't think anyone was fully convinced that he'd come in and look like a world beater straight away. But that's exactly what he's done. He was brilliant at the Club World Cup, playing up front. Obviously, he's played the number 10 position a few times now, and he looks great at that as well. And it's always nice to have someone that can play in a variety of positions. I'm sure he'd do a great job on the left as well. So, yeah, that's definitely Chelsea's standout piece of business from this summer, and he could even be the signing of the summer across the Premier League if he keeps on going.
Where would you look to play him in an ideal world? If everyone's fit, where would you be putting him in the Chelsea 11?
I think he'd be up front. I think if Cole Palmer was fit, you'd have to play him in the number 10, and that would mean that the Pedro would have to play up front. I'm not sure he's got quite the pace to be a world-class left winger. I'm sure he could do well there, but I think up front would be probably where he would fit in. His best position is probably number 10, but obviously you can't drop Palmer. So, yeah, I think Pedro probably starts in the striker position in Chelsea's best 11 at the moment.
Okay, so that's our A+ signing. Let's look potentially not at an A+ signing. So far, anyway, it would feel harsh to say that. But Jamie Gittins started the first game against Palace, didn't really look at his full, what we were expecting from him. Hasn't started since, but coming off the bench. What have you made of him so far, and what does he need in order to come good to be the player who's signed for nearly 50 million?
Yeah, it's a lot of money for Jamie Gittins, and for that reason, I think you'd have to give it a C. Could potentially give it a D even, but I think it's probably still too soon to really grade him. He's only had that one start. He's probably a similar player to Madueke in that he can go past players and he's exciting to watch at times, but he probably lacks the end product at the moment to make him a top player. So we need to see that more consistently. And actually, in those pre-season games, he was taking players on a lot more than he did against Palace. So we want to see more of that. Estevão's already shown that he has the freedom to go past players all the time. So I don't see why that wouldn't be the case for Gittins. So I want to see more dynamism and obviously goal contributions as well. So I'd give him a C for now. Slightly underwhelming so far, but obviously a long season ahead.
Yeah, so if we're looking at Gittins, I guess we touch on the slight elephant in the room when it comes to Chelsea's transfer window. The signing that not everyone particularly wanted, but everyone knew was going to happen. Garnacho coming in from Man United for around sort of 35 million, 40 million. What what do you make of the whole thing? Because he wasn't popular amongst a wide part of the fan base, but do you think Chelsea can get something out of Garnacho?
So I'm definitely in the minority on the Garnacho signing. I think he's a better signing than Gittins. Cost what, 15, 20 million pounds less than Gittins. Probably wouldn't say he's Premier League proven, but he's at least got Premier League experience and scored a handful of goals in each season that he's been with Man United. Obviously scored a few screamers as well, like the overhead kick. I know a lot of people speak about his attitude, but I trust that Chelsea have done their due diligence and figured out that he's not a bad egg for the dressing room. So I'm actually quite optimistic about the Garnacho signing. I think it would have been nice if Chelsea signed a proven left winger as well as Garnacho. Instead of Gittins. Like I say, I like the Garnacho signing. I think he'll do quite well, and especially with a point to prove after leaving Manchester United.
Do you think it's not going to be long until we see him starting games for Chelsea? Because you've had Neto starting the majority of games on the left so far. We always kind of think he's better off the right, and he'll be competing with Estevão, which could be a really decent battle for both of them for minutes. Do you think that's the way we're looking in the coming weeks?
I'm not sure because I think it all depends on Estevão. Pedro Neto right now is our top winger. I don't think you can argue with that. Whether it's on the right or the left, he's the most consistent at the moment. So it really depends on Estevão. He's got the place now. And if he can keep it, then it should be those two on the wing for the foreseeable future. And Garnacho will have to bide his time on the bench, coming on for the last 20, 30 minutes. If we see Estevão's form fall off slightly, or perhaps Maresca wants to rest him because he is only 18 years old, then I think Garnacho would be the next choice to come in. But at the moment, I don't think he gets into our best 11.
Let's look at one more signing from the summer and give it our grade. It's going to be a bit of a difficult one to do. Liam Delap, he didn't start the first game, built his way into the second game. I thought had a really decent game against West Ham. But 10 minutes in against Fulham, forced off with what looks like a pretty significant hamstring injury. What do you think about that? And then after that, the business done in the days after in the striker position to end up with Mark Guéhi back at the club rather than Nicholas Jackson or anyone new.
So on Delap, I don't think you can blame him for the injury. You know, these things happen, and I don't think you should take that into consideration with the signing. I think if you forget about the injury, I'd give him a B. Obviously, he's still young and he's got a lot to learn, but he showed good flashes at Ipswich last season, got a handful of goals, and he was a real physical presence. And he was particularly good when he played against Chelsea, and I wonder whether that had a big impact on whether we signed him or not. Like you say, he started fairly well. His hold-up play's good. You know, I like the way he charges into the opponent's defence. He really is a handful. And I think he would be really good for someone like Palmer or Pedro to play off. And it is just a real shame that we're not going to see him for quite a few months now. But given his age and the fact that it didn't cost that much, I think it was about 30 million, I would give that a B grade for now. As for the other striker situation, Nicholas Jackson, I think the right decision was for him to leave. He obviously let Chelsea down in the last few games of the Premier League season with a red card. He got another red card in the Club World Cup, and I think Maresca just lost faith in him then. So it was the right decision for him to go. Obviously, it got a bit messy, but got there in the end and got a really good fee for him. It would be about £70 million, I think, if the obligation is met at Bayern Munich. So that's a positive. Mark Guéhi, it's a shame for him because I think the Sunderland loan would have been really good for him. Although the early signs were that he was behind Eliza Miyenda and Wilson Isidore at Sunderland. So maybe he wouldn't have started that many games anyway. He'll come back to Chelsea and probably be second choice behind Pedro at the moment. Will play a lot of cup games. He did well in the Conference League last season. So I've got quite a bit of faith in Guéhi. I think there's a player in there. Obviously a lot to learn as well, and he's still young too. But I don't think there's actually that much difference between him and Liam Delap at the moment. So don't think Chelsea have got that much worse swapping the two with Delap obviously out injured at the moment.
Okay. I mean, obviously, Guéhi would now be cut-tied for League Cup games, which would be a bit of an issue. But it's not like Arsenal signing Neto where they had all summer to think about it. Like we've kind of done this at a bit of a panic. but you might be looking at Pedro or perhaps one of the youngsters for the Lincoln game in a couple of weeks' time. Let's move on then to have a quick look back at the West London derby. João Pedro and Enzo Fernandez back amongst the goals. Fernandez, it seems, will score no matter how bad he seems to be playing at the minute, which is definitely not a bad thing. It's the third game of the season, though, where we have to talk about a goal being disallowed by VAR. I think we were pretty okay with the first two being disallowed, but this one, I feel like it might be harder to argue.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think the VAR's had a stinker there. I don't know how you could possibly disallow that goal. Yes, he makes contact with Chalobah's foot, but I think it's, if anything, it's more the other way around. I think Chalobah puts his foot underneath King's. So there's no way that goal should have been disallowed, and I think we got very lucky there. What I would say, though, is a lot of people have been saying things like this is the worst decision VAR has ever made and things like that. I wouldn't go that far. I know Chelsea have had a few, especially, that could probably rival this one. So it's not that extreme, but yeah, it was a very bad one, and we did get very lucky there.
I think so. It's 2 games now without Cole Palmer in the starting side. 2 fairly comprehensive wins in the end. What's Maresca doing that's working with that attacking line that maybe hasn't been quite as fluent at times when Palmer's been playing?
I think you've got to give a lot of credit to João Pedro. I think most people would assume that without Palmer out of the team, then we would really struggle for creativity. But Pedro was, I've got to say, Tyreek George was terrible in that game, and it felt like Pedro was playing the number 10 and the striker position, and he still looked good doing both at the same time. So I think at the moment I wouldn't say a one-man team, but Pedro really is carrying us at the moment in a similar way to Palmer was. So obviously, I'm not saying Palmer can stay on the sidelines. We want him back too. But yeah, Pedro's been the main man lately, and I think it's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, you mentioned George there, another one who didn't get his move in the end to Fulham that we thought was going to go through. It felt like a move away would have been the right thing for him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there is a chance that he becomes a Premier League player one day. But I would be very, very surprised if that's a player that Chelsea ever regrets selling. I don't think he's got that ceiling that an Estevão or even a Gittins has. So I was actually really pleased to see that he was going to get a move to a team where he'd probably get more of a chance and a better chance to develop in the future. And £22 million would be another great sale for an academy player who's only shown flashes. He's not shown anything consistent yet. So yeah, it's a shame that didn't go through, and maybe that's one that Chelsea and Fulham will look to revisit in January.
So to round things off, if I was going to give you a hit or miss question for the summer transfer window, what are you going to say?
I would say Chelsea's transfer window has been a hit. Spent a lot of money, but also sold a lot of money. Made a record over 300 million in player sales this summer. So that has to be a positive. Cleared a lot of the dead wood. Let go of a lot of players that probably didn't have a future at Chelsea. And the signings are positive. Obviously, it would have been nice to sign a centre-back, potentially a goalkeeper as well. But on the whole, Chelsea signed a lot of good players, and I think they can expect a better season this season than last, which is always the aim after a summer transfer window.
No, I fully agree. So that'll be it for us today. Next week, we'll be looking ahead to Brentford, which will be the first game back after the internationals. We'll see whether Garnacho or Buonanotte even are given their debuts for the club. But that's summer 2025 in the bag, and a contentious 2-0 win over Fulham in the bag as well. We've given our grades. Now it's your turn. Drop your verdict on this window and your score prediction for Brentford next Saturday in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for Transfer Paddock and post-match analysis on the go. Thank you very much. Goodbye.